Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Business of Aesthetics expert panel. I'm Angie, and I'll be moderating our conversation tonight. Our topic is operational AI in aesthetic practices, automating the front desk without losing the personal touch. And that last part is really what makes tonight's discussion important. AI can help a practice respond faster, follow up more consistently, and remove repetitive work. But if we implement it badly, the patient can very quickly feel like they're talking to a system instead of being cared for by a practice.
Mhm.
So, tonight, we're going beyond the hype and getting very practical about where AI belongs, where it doesn't, and how to build the right human handoffs around it. So just so you know, we are recording today's session and you will receive a copy of the session afterwards. Before we continue, I want to thank our platinum sponsor, Equa Marketing. Equa Marketing has supported aesthetic practices and industry leaders across the US and Canada for over 15 years, helping practices strengthen their online visibility and support long-term growth. So, a big thank you to the Equa team for supporting today's Business of Aesthetics panel. Now, here's where we're going tonight. First, we'll look at where operational AI is actually creating value in an aesthetic practice. Then we'll get into scheduling and follow-up and how to automate those areas without damaging the patient experience. We'll also talk about the AI-powered front desk, including its capabilities, its limitations, and the guardrails practices need. And finally, we'll get very practical about what successful implementation actually looks like across the practice. Let me introduce our first panelist, Audrey Campbell. Audrey is the founder of the Audrey Aesthetic, a thought leadership platform helping aesthetic practices implement AI through practical, operations-focused strategies. She brings more than 8 years of experience across medical aesthetics, wellness, and plastic surgery, and holds an MPA Edge from the University of Pennsylvania. Audrey specializes in taking complex AI concepts and turning them into practical solutions for med spa owners and clinic leaders. Audrey, welcome. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Angie. I'm happy to be on.
Joining Audrey is Ben Stover, Chief Commercial Officer at AI Med Consult. Ben is a healthcare technology executive and serial entrepreneur with more than a decade of experience helping healthcare organizations use technology to improve patient engagement, streamline operations, and support sustainable growth. His work sits right at the intersection of healthcare AI, intelligent patient communication, and the human connection practices still need to protect. Ben, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Angie. Great to be here.
And rounding out our panel is Shannon Blake, Director of Aesthetic Partnerships at Podium. Shannon works closely with local aesthetic practices on modernizing operations, using AI effectively, and improving the client experience in an increasingly competitive market. She brings a particularly valuable perspective tonight because she sees what these technologies actually look like at the patient-facing and front desk level. Shannon, welcome, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you, Angie. Excited to get into it.
All right, Audrey, we will start with you. So, now, I want to start before the technology even gets switched on because a lot of implementation problems begin much earlier. So, Audrey, when a practice selects a vendor before mapping its workflows, a front desk coordinator is the first person to feel it. What does that breakdown look like in the first 30 days?
Great question. So, when bringing on something that a patient care coordinator or manager is going to be handling the most, I would bring them on the demos. I would have them ask the questions. What is the biggest thing holding them back from creating a great patient experience? and making sure that there's feedback and a feedback loop that you can get from the patient care coordinator or manager dealing with it while you're implementing it. And know that it's okay to give feedback and make sure that it's working like it's supposed to, and have that kind of AI champion while you're implementing as well, but making sure and letting them know if something doesn't look right or if it's actually inhibiting you doing your job, checking patients in, need to flag it with us as soon as possible. So creating that open feedback loop, because there can be some things to fix, but especially when they're dealing with it the most, we want to make sure it's actually making their life easier and not having another thing to babysit.
Let's make that practical for a bit. All right. What is usually the first sign that the technology has been layered onto a bad workflow rather than actually fixing it?
Yeah, I would say if my manager, my patient care coordinator is staying late, they're having to actually go back through all the conversations. Things are being booked wrong, so we have to spend an extra time to make sure that they're being booked with the right provider. Just those little automations that are trying to help us improve workflows, but if they're having to review all the work that's already done, something's not working. Some workflow or system was not put in or taught to the AI.
Ben, from the technology side, in about 30 seconds, what would you want mapped before your team ever touches an implementation?
Sure.
What's a flag? Oh, sorry, is it my question?
Sorry, I
Uh,
thought I heard.
Both of
Go
you
ahead.
could answer,
No,
please.
I was
you first. You're on a roll. I love it.
Yes.
like, just stealing Ben's question. I was just gonna say what's a flag and what the patient experience should be from front to end, from the moment they see an ad or go on your website.
Yep. Yeah, I would say, just adding that, understanding the outcomes that you're really trying to drive towards, making sure you're very clear about what those KPIs are, and tracking that on a very regular basis to determine, is the tool doing that? If so, what level of efficacy is it achieving? Is it, partially or entirely doing that? I think data-driven organizations outperform those that do anything other than that. So I would highly suggest that.
All right, now that naturally brings us to the front desk itself. Before we blame technology, we need to understand where today's patient journey is already breaking down. So, Shannon, most aesthetic front desks are understaffed and overloaded. Where are inquiries actually falling through the cracks before any AI enters the picture?
Yeah, it's such a good question. So, what we see primarily at Podium, is we've done a lot of research on this, is about 30 to 40% of the leads are coming in after hours. So, if I had to prioritize where it's really breaking, it's client expectations are they want to hear back in 1 to 2 minutes on any question they have about a treatment or getting something booked. But 40% of the leads, 40% of the leads are coming in after hours. And so these practices don't have a solution in place to meet the client expectations after hours. That's a big percentage to be missing out on leads. And so that is like critical must have. That would be where I would say for practices to make sure that they're doing the research and getting a solution. And I know we're going to dive more into it, but having an AI employee that is trained just like your very best front desk reps, in a lot of cases even better, to be able to handle those inquiries as they're coming in after hours, because that's when folks have time to, I call it selfish time, to scroll and discover and inquire and book, because we're all busy 9 to 5, which tends to be these practices hours.
All right, now let's look at that from the patient side. Which of those gaps is most likely to make a prospective patient simply move on to another place or another practice, rather?
Is this question for me? It's speed to lead. You guys have probably heard it 100 times. It is, we all are very high maintenance assholes, pardon my language. But Amazon did that to us. All of these brands that have created convenience and accessibility from 10, 15 years ago, that's the world your patients live in. So you have to think through that lens and meet those client expectations. So if you don't have a way to track your speed to lead and see that it's under 2 minutes, that's your first problem, right? But then what is the solution that you have in place to do that? One of our favorite things at Podium is to secret shop practices. We started doing it about 2 years ago, and we'll just text a random practice that doesn't have Podium in this case, but tools in place to be able to meet expectations. And on average, from the hundreds that we've secret shopped, it's about an hour and a half during business hours that it takes a practice to get back to a lead. And then after hours, it's 8.5 hours, which is nutty. There is no world where somebody is going to wait that long. Maybe you've got a patient little Nelly there that will wait that long, but primarily the majority of people are expecting an answer in 1 to 2 minutes.
That's perfect, Shannon. Thank you so much for that. And now, one of the places where that leakage becomes especially visible is after the practice closes. So, Ben, after hours inquiries represent some of the highest value unconverted leads in aesthetic practices. What is actually happening to those conversations right now?
Yep. No, it's a great question, and building on Shannon's perspective, exactly what she said is what's happening. So you've got maybe two major leak points. Number one is a competitor gets to them first. I've had the benefit of working in and around many different types of local businesses, owner, operator, and otherwise. Typically, no matter who we're hiring, it could be a painter, a plumber, a physician, it could be an IT person. The company that has good credibility and responds first is probably going to be the one that wins. Communication is very important. So that's the sort of threat number one that you're trying to get rid of. Threat number two is just the fact that the patient maybe loses interest. 1,000 other things that are going in their mind and going on in their life grab them. Maybe they still want to get that lower bleph or mommy makeover or whatever it is, but it gets pushed out for 3 or 4 months, and therefore so does your revenue. So I think those are the two biggest leakages that you got to really consider. If you can reliably and consistently immediately respond, that's the optimal strategy. Before AI, that was pretty much impossible. AI is infinitely scalable. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't show up sick. And if it's trained well and it's bespoke and designed for the practice, it's able to really support every lead regardless of where it comes in, which is, I think, the key of that is casting a wide net and really doing a good job when they respond.
Okay. If you don't mind, let's make that a bit tangible. What happens between someone submitting an inquiry at 9 p.m. and the team finally getting back to them the following morning?
Sure. Well, first off, there's a very large number of those happening, especially over the weekend, right? So you're now dealing with a backlog, and it's Monday morning, and you're dealing with all the other things of getting the practice open, getting moving, dealing with whatever the world decides to throw at you that day. So there's a huge backlog that makes it take even longer. You've also got the challenge that not every office is blessed with people that have a ton of sales experience, and there is a lot of sort of salesmanship that comes to the follow-up of converting properly. So again, that speed to lead is so critical. If you don't get them when they are at that hottest cognition point to move forward with what you want to do, you're kind of now playing from behind again. So I think, getting right to it and in trying to convert a lead that you probably paid a pretty significant sum of money to get. I mean, all of the digital marketing that you're doing to get leads in the first place, it's not a small feat. So making the most of that, converting that instantly rather than letting it potentially get cold and then having to rely on the follow-up and all of the operational challenges that come from that. It's a huge gap, and that's really the whole reason our company exists, to fill that. So.
Can I add on to that? Because I know we've focused a lot on like after hour leads and having a solution in place with AI and speed to lead, but we haven't really even talked about the fact that front desk individuals are generally we'll call it an entry level position, a lower paid position. Unfortunately, that's a whole other conversation that we could talk about the importance of that not being the case, but in all reality, it generally is. And there's a lot of turnover in that position. And so another really valuable thing about AI is you can train it once, and I don't want to say once because primarily once, but then as you're adding services, you need to go in and adjust things. As your business changes, you need to adjust it. But it's so valuable in the fact that you don't have somebody new starting every 6 months and you have to start over. And you can really train it to upsell or bring up other treatments that it's really difficult to get a front desk individual bought in to wanting to care that much about the conversation and really dive into how long they've been thinking about this treatment. And those are things and strategy of the conversation that you can train an AI to do that you can guarantee it's happening consistently, that you can't say that about a front desk human.
For sure, for sure. I'll further add to that. Just the other thing that we haven't talked about, our data, we show about 89% of leads come in either after hours, weekends, or peak time. So the other challenge that you have is, even let's say you've got a phenomenal front desk person, they've got sales background training, and they've been around for more than 3 months because you didn't have any churn or whatever. You've got a good scenario. They can only field one phone call at a time, right? So I'm sure Shannon and Audrey, you will share this issue with me as well. But our own sales teams, when we're reaching out to customers, it can take us 5 or 6 times to even get the front desk to answer the phone, and we're doing this all day long. So
Yep.
it's just being able to engage that, plus one lead that's hitting you up on Instagram and another 3 that are hitting your website. That one person, no matter how good they are, is just not going to do all that simultaneously. So.
No, and Angie said it at the beginning. This industry is all about keeping that human connection, and how special if your front desk can only focus on human connection when someone is in the practice and not saying, hang on 1 second, and answering the phone while that person's standing there awkwardly, not feeling important. It allows the front desk to really hone in on that relationship building aspect.
Totally.
All right. Now, before we move on to the next question, just a quick note for everyone joining us today. If you have a question at any point during the discussion, please send it through the Q&A box. You can also use the chat to share comments, thoughts, or anything that comes up as you're listening. All right. Let's get into the next question. This one's for Audrey. So now we've identified the problem. The next temptation is to go shopping for technology. And that's where practices can get pulled into a really good demo. So when a practice is evaluating AI vendors, what criteria separate a tool that fits the workflow from one that only fits the demo?
Yeah, of course. So coming with common scenarios that happen that you deal with, like what if this goes out? What if our internet goes out? What if we have a patient that's calling from different emails, or we have an emergency? What are those workflows to get attention, and who is it going to go to? The second one is making sure that the team is bought in, that we're solving a problem that they're all experiencing as well too, and that it's usable and easy to onboard. Because if you have something that's going to take 2 weeks, everything else they're doing to onboard it as well, it's just not going to give that ROI that you would like when they're having to go through continuous onboarding. The next thing is, how do I turn it off? If something goes wrong, if a patient has a vascular occlusion, if a patient has something, any of those automations or bots that they're communicating with, can I turn it off, or what is going to be flagged with me? What are the keywords, and how does that happen, and who does it go to as well? So knowing how to turn it off, or knowing when to turn it off for a patient, and I think is one of the most important things.
If we are to turn that into a checklist, what
Yeah.
should an owner verify before signing anything?
Yeah, of course. So internally, I would verify what KPI, what metric I'm trying to improve, what would be an acceptable 30, 60, 90-day improvement, how I'm going to measure that. The next is the onboarding. How much help onboarding do they have, and where is the support? Is it automatic support? How can I easily access someone if something is an issue? And the follow-up as well too. So are they going to continue to update the AI and help and take updates that you have in the practice? Is it just to sell you one time? Bye, good luck with this. And then making sure, of course, how they handle patient information and how it takes feedback as well too.
Yeah. Ben, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well, because you're on the vendor and technology side of this. What's a fair expectation a practice should have of a responsible AI provider?
Yeah, it's still on the checklist piece, right? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, yeah. So I think there's 2 really big ones I would add. First, is it alleviating operational workflow, or is it adding? So that's a number one thing, right? If you're adding a tool that's doing more, that's great. It's accomplishing more, it's helping you convert faster, whatever it does. But if it's simultaneously alleviating or reducing an operational workflow and making it easier, so doing more with less effort, I think that's where it starts to become a bit of a magical combo. The other thing is how well does it integrate with your existing tech stack, which is just a huge component. I had the benefit to work with Philips Healthcare for about a decade prior to this. I ultimately led our interoperability business, and we would do medical record interoperability across entire state health information exchange ecosystems. And that ingrained in me that the EMR has got to be the single source of truth. If you've invested in that, you've implemented that in your practice, you don't want to be retraining a new tool and having that be the primary. So for us, I would say really push for other solutions and tools that can bidirectionally share data with your primary EMR. It just alleviates the need to manually input data. It just opens up all kinds of net negative operational flows, meaning it reduces the amount of effort that you have to do. So those are two big ones.
Angie, I want to add something to what Ben said because it resonated so much with us at Podium. We built an AI employee that was great. She could answer questions and she could make people feel comfortable with treatments. She could tell them about membership. She could do all the things from like an information perspective, and she could send a scheduling link. And it would then put the onus on the person on the other end to actually click on the link and schedule their appointment. And we got so much feedback because they were like, our practices were like, we need Avery to actually book the appointment. And to Ben's point, if the AI is not integrated with the scheduling software, you can only go so far with your AI. But if you want your AI employee to have a superpower and be able to recommend dates and times and really take the work off of the team's plate, it has to be integrated. So much so that we had to go build the entire EMR ourselves because we couldn't get the integrations with the EMRs for it to be that tied in. It's so critical. What Ben said is exactly right. It's got to be all in the same system or talking to each other at the very least.
That's perfect. We've got a question from Diane Hopkins. Now, we will get to you during our Q&A session, so please keep on sending your questions because our panelists are here for just a few more minutes. Make the most use of this panel and ask your questions and share your thoughts as well. All right, Shannon, once again, back to you. Right. There's another layer to all of this, the brand itself. So between capturing every after hours inquiry with AI and protecting the brand voice premium patients expect, how do you decide where to draw the line?
Oh man. Okay, so yeah, this is a loaded question. I think at the end of the day, we need to learn to understand where is there going to be, when does a human need to step in and really have an emotional connection in the conversation? And when is it just informational stuff that your team talks about every single day, pain level, downtime, price, what complements that service? When it comes to maybe somebody getting a little bit nervous about a treatment, a pain level, maybe that's where you want your AI to step back and you want a human to step in. But I will actually say I am a member of a local med spa in Utah, and this particular practice does have an AI employee. And I was messaging with it today, letting them know that I wanted to get a chemical pill scheduled on the calendar. And I actually, knowing that this was a conversation we were having this evening, I said to it, I'm actually really nervous about getting a chemical pill. I've never had one before. And I actually have the conversation right here. And the AI said to me, it's totally normal that you feel a little bit nervous, Shannon. Since it's a light pill, downtime's going to be minimal and it's designed to be quick and a gentle treatment overall. And I thought, oh, and I was like, thank you so much for making me feel calm. But there might be a practice that doesn't feel comfortable with an AI handling those conversations. And so what's important, kind of going back to when you're shopping for an AI solution, you need to be able to pick a solution where you can customize it on the back end, where you can say, when a conversation starts talking about X, I need you, AI employee, to raise your hand and send a notification to the team that a human needs to step in. That's available today. I know it's available at Podium, and I'm sure it's available for some other vendors that have built such employees. But that's an important thing to ask is, can you customize it? Because every practice is going to have a different level of tolerance on what they're willing to let their AI employee handle, so it doesn't impact that human connection relationship. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, let's see how AI can do to calm me down with my nerves, because I am a little bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to pain.
We have in the chat a question from Vanessa. Does it adopt to Spanish language? I'm guessing she's probably talking about AI or the AI employee. I'm not too sure. But Chana, would you like to maybe say something for that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to every solution out there, but with Podium's AI employee, I don't even know how many languages Avery speaks. My goodness, I mean, obviously Spanish and all of the major languages. I want to say she speaks like over 50 languages. So if you pick, that's another, back to like the question Audrey was asked is what should be on the list of things when you're shopping for a solution? If you know your client base is mixed in ethnicity and language, that's absolutely a question you should be asking, because I don't know that all are able to do that, but it's very much a capability that's available in various solutions in the aesthetics industry today.
And I really hope that has helped your question. All right, Ben, let's get back to you. It takes us directly into one of the biggest questions around operational AI authority. So between giving AI broad authority over patient conversations and keeping staff visible and accountable, how does a small practice find a workable boundary?
Very interesting question. I would say that the optimal way to approach that, I think, is to think about what are the actions and activities, especially when it comes to patient experience, that are high impact versus lower impact. Things like qualifying patients is lower impact simply because it's very high volume activity that ultimately, even if you're exceptional at it, has a lower conversion rate. We're in the high 30s to low 40% conversion rate, which is pretty stellar for most tools out there. But if you're doing that manually and you have 150 leads to go through, it's a huge amount of time. So we actually pulled this. It's something that we report on in our back office reporting suite. That there's an average of about 7.5 minutes that it takes office staff to work through every single lead. Some of them are not qualified for every reason, to the fact that maybe their BMI is off, or they simply don't want to pay that price and they had no idea. So doing that first, I think, is big. So taking the sort of lower impact but high volume tasks away is great. The other thing that I think is really useful is to look at it from a project management tool called RACI, which is really just an acronym for responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. So keeping the AI responsible for a huge amount of the heavy lifting, but still consulting and informing office staff so that they're aware of what it's doing. They can see this is how many conversations it had today. This is, the transcript of the conversation. These are the images that the patient, uploaded of themselves. And, we even have a tool that automates post-operative outreach campaigns. So being able to track whether or not the patient is, at a 1 to 10 pain scale and all these kind of different things, knowing when it makes sense to immediately push to an emergency provider versus, someone in the office. I think those are the things that a practice needs to have a say over and be consulted on, and then, delegating as they are comfortable with, that specific responsibility to their AI.
What do you think are the dangers when a practice assumes that because AI can answer something, it should answer it?
So I think the danger is, you do not, I guess I'll back up. A good AI tool should be capturing patient consent in a very broad, very protective sense to begin with, which is critical. We always do that. To go a further step, you really don't want your tool to give medical advice. There's a clear line at some point, but there's also a very, very gray line that a lot of practices would say, this is not medical advice, or this is. So going back to Shannon's point, having an AI that is designed specifically for your practice, not a generic chatbot, not a generic, and Q&A type thing, but something that you can actually dig in and it understands your price points, it understands which procedures you do and don't offer, and it understands how you want to position those procedures, how you think about them. I think that is really critical when it comes to not allowing AI to overstep.
Yeah. We have another question from Vanessa. Are you able to prescribe through the platform, and does it have medical forms built in?
Ours does not prescribe if that's for us. We go all the way up to scheduling and office visits and post-operative outreach and even pre-operative outreach, but we do not have the prescription piece of that. We also focus really heavily on surgical practices, so a lot of what we do isn't going to be, from prescription perspective.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
at Podium, we do offer e-prescribe. We're on this mission to simplify tech for aesthetics. And so for us, it's everything in all in one solution. So we had to have e-prescribe, especially with everything that's growing on the wellness side.
Yep.
All right. Let's take a break right about now, because I have something that I would really, really like to share with you. So there's something available to every practice owner joining us tonight that connects really well with what we've been discussing. So far, we've talked about what happens after a prospective patient reaches your practice, how quickly you respond, how you follow up, where AI can help, and how you make sure that patient still feels cared for. But there's an important question that comes before all of that. Are enough of the right patients actually finding your practice in the first place? You can have an incredible team, a beautifully designed patient experience, and great systems behind the front desk. But if someone in your area searches for the treatments you provide and your practice isn't showing up prominently, that opportunity may never even reach your front desk. And the way patient search is changing as well. They're not only using traditional Google results anymore. AI-powered search is becoming part of that journey too. So for a practice owner, it can be difficult to know, where am I actually visible? Where am I losing ground? What are the practices around me doing differently? And if I want more consistent patient growth, where should I put my attention first? That's exactly why Equa Marketing is making this available to all the practice owners attending tonight. They're offering you a complimentary one-on-one marketing strategy session valued at just $900. And this isn't simply a general conversation about marketing. You'll receive a personalized, comprehensive growth plan built around your practice and your local market. You receive a Google AI overview audit, so you can see whether your practice is appearing in AI-powered search results. And you'll also receive a local competitor audit, comparing your practice against 3 named competitors within 5 miles. So rather than leaving tonight thinking, I probably need to work on my marketing, you can actually sit down with someone, look at your practice specifically, understand where the opportunities are, and leave with much more clarity around what your next move should be. And even if you're already doing marketing, I think there's value in having another set of eyes looking at, what's happening in your market, especially with how quickly search and AI are changing. So the QR code is right here on the screen. If you're even slightly curious about where your practice currently stands, I'd encourage you to take advantage of the session while you have the opportunity. So take your phone out, scan the QR code, and reserve your session. It takes less than a minute. So I'll leave this up for a moment. Again, it's complimentary for all practice owners attending today. The session is valued at $900. You'll receive those 3 personalized reports around your growth, AI search visibility, and local competition. So definitely take advantage of it. All right, let's get back into our panel, because now I want to move from where AI should stop to what happens once it's actually operating inside the practice. So Audrey, I'm coming back to you. A coordinator opens the morning to find 14 AI handled conversations with nothing flagged for review. Who is at risk in that practice, and when do they feel it?
I would hope, I mean, if they're having risks every night and flags, setting up the flags in the beginning, just like they're talking about. If someone is a high spender and they didn't book an appointment, or they had some negative feedback, or they took a while to go back, of course, we want to make sure our flags are set. Um, and making sure from the beginning, like Ben and Shannon said, who needs to be routed to if it's a post-op that says I'm feeling like it's hard to breathe, or hey, I have weird bruising. Hopefully those aren't going to the patient care coordinator, but if there's something that should be flagging, hey, this benefits from a human touch, or they've asked to speak to a human at this time and we didn't follow up. So I would say, great, you had 14 conversations, nothing's flagged. If you from the beginning set that up, because of course I don't want to add on extra work. They shouldn't be having to flag and go through all 14 conversations and double checking it. So either it might be a AI problem, or it's doing its job and there's nothing to flag.
Yeah. What's the operation failure behind that scenario? Is it the AI, the workflow, or the lack of ownership?
Yeah, so from the beginning, it'd probably be what are we flagging and what levels of flag are there? Is it a high spender that prefers to speak to a human, had a negative experience, or someone had a medical complication or reached out that it didn't go to the or did go to the patient coordinator? It's not the right person as well. So it's operational from the beginning. You have to have your workflows down and what you think. Of course, they can help suggest should have a human touch, and then what the patient care coordinator is responsible for. But from the beginning, it's a workflow. AI does what it's told.
If you don't mind sharing an example on how the morning review process actually looks like.
Yeah, of course. If I had Podium or Med Consult, I wanted to flag for a patient coordinator people that do benefit from a human touch. So it's a high spender, maybe more mature age, that prefers not to speak to a robot. We all have them. I'd love to speak to a robot after hours, but hey, follow up. They had a question about their trio balancing that they got, and they want to talk to their provider. Something like that, something that is a high touch so they can look at their note and respond to them. Other things that are repetitive, they don't need to reach out to, that frankly, AI is probably going to be doing better at converting them and following up than a human or a front desk coordinator. But I want to see the wins, who booked here, but majorly pointing out what a human needs to interact with. If they're following up, the AI agent's doing its job, they can focus on welcoming someone in the front desk or writing personalized visit notes as well too.
Thank you, Audrey, for that. Shannon, let's take that from operations into an actual patient moment. When a patient texts mid-inquiry that she's nervous about procedure, what should happen in the exact moment to move the conversation to a person?
I kind of answered this earlier. I went a little out of turn, but this just goes back to I would challenge the team because I think there's a misconception that AI that we used to experience from like pre-open AI, not capable.
Yeah.
We have been building AI employees for 3 years now at Podium, and initial Avery, okay, not great. It has come such a long way. So I would just challenge teams to kind of step outside of them being nervous about AI handling an emotional conversation like that and play around with it when you first purchase a tool and be a test subject with AI and see how your AI employee is navigating those conversations before you just jump to, as soon as somebody talks about something being a concern or they're scared, you got to give it to a human because AI can't handle that. That's incorrect. So
Mhm.
again, it totally goes back to the comfortability of the practice. I think when it gets to things like it's bringing up bringing up a medical concern or talking about medical advice, to Ben's point, that is like a no for AI. That's just like a legal and compliance aspect. But anyway, so I guess I would just challenge folks to say, if you have a really good AI employee, it actually can have a very emotionally intelligent conversation with a lead and or a client. And prove it to yourself by playing with your own AI employee before you turn it on to go live.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. To add to that, I can understand the apprehension over the past few years, even up to maybe a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
there have been a ton of low efficacy multi-purpose chatbots. National Institute of Health last year did a study that showed even the big models like Anthropic's and ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, they have billions of dollars coming in, and they still had a 50 to 80% hallucination rate with regard to medical related questions. So I think you'll see more and more a trend towards specialist AIs. Small language models is another way to think about it, or closed loop knowledge libraries, which is what we've built. It's designed only for aesthetics medicine, nothing else. The better and more specialized your AI can be, and then the more bespoke to your practice, the more you're going to be able to delegate and trust it. But yeah, I get it. There's a lot of basic chatbots out there that have flooded the market. People spin them up quickly. They get a ChatGPT license and they throw it out there and they sell it, and it doesn't work. But if you test it, you try it, and you choose the right options, which there are plenty of, I think you'd be surprised as right now today how good they really are, and they're continuing to get better faster, which is a really fascinating component of AI in general.
I wanted to
Then
second.
early, oh, go ahead, Audrey.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say what you guys both said is that people are getting more used to talking to chatbots. They're so much better. It's not the annoying bank, like hang up, say human.
Sure.
And a lot of we're working in medicine and aesthetics, elective pay. Some of these women may not want to talk to a 20-year-old front desk person that is saying, hey, I'm having hard time sleeping, I'm having fatigue, I'm, worried about my body post like having a kid. And so, just like you said, it's learning how people like to talk, and it's going to get better when having these emotional conversations, better than someone maybe at the front desk who's never had a kid, never experienced menopause, and being able to convert them and see what works well. It sounds a little bit better to say it to a robot. I mean, we have robot therapists now and robot girlfriends and boyfriends. Easier to talk to.
Such a good point, Audrey. I love that. And what I was just going to say is to double down on what Ben said, going back to when you're shopping for an AI, he nailed it. You have to ask, are you specialized in aesthetics? Did you build this AI employee for this industry? It's not going
Right.
to work if it's general. It's just not. There's too many nuances with aesthetics to have it be built for other industries.
Yep.
That's perfect. Then let's get back to you. So there's another operational issue that often gets less attention. AI can only be as reliable as the information it has. So when services or pricing change, what is the
Mm.
specific handoff that keeps the AI knowledge base accurate before the next patient inquiry arrives?
Good question. So we like to kind of separate things like that are relatively quick and easy to get the AI to train and fix, and put that in the hands of the practice so that they can on the fly determine, okay, mommy makeovers today, or this month we've got a huge amount of volume coming in. We can afford now to increase our prices. That's going to go up. So we have a whole back office, essentially a procedure library that practices can turn on and off on the fly. They can change price points on the fly. And if they want to kind of change the nuances about how that procedure is positioned, they can do that all themselves without having to engage us. If you want to go a little bit more in depth and do some training on maybe conversationally how the AI responds, or deeper nuances about this is or is not medical advice in my opinion as a physician, right? Our team does that sort of deep dive stuff, but we want to make it really easy for those quick hit operational sort of business changes that happen regularly to be at the practice's fingertips to change whenever. So that's live with us. It happens immediately.
Yeah. Audrey, I'd like your perspective as well. Operationally, where would you build that responsibility into the practice?
That would definitely come in through the vendor demo at the beginning, making sure that you can, like Ben and I'm sure Shannon with Podium, can do that. You can personalize it. It's easy to update. Do I have to wait days to let you guys know that I'm running this promotion? We're changing how we're doing this. We have a new provider that specializes in this. So I really want to talk about this new laser and make sure I'm upselling it. So at the beginning, when you were talking to a vendor, how easy is it to change? How can I update? This is how we talk about pricing, as well too, and how we talk about even just the verbiage. I worked with neither of their companies. So I was building an AI receptionist, and it wasn't learning, it wasn't getting better, and it was actually turning conversion down. And they refused to change or let any of the practices do it and be like, what's holding you back from booking your $100 off filler? Who wants that? Obviously, that's not convert. We had more unsubscribes, but they're like, no, it works. It's AI. It's perfect. And so it literally was wasting this person's money. We couldn't change it. They refused to. It wasn't learning. So it's just automations. And it wasn't able to have those conversations. But I would say that was like the most important thing for them. I came in, a little bit after they obviously went with this vendor to fix because it was, I mean, it plummeted like after hours. You should have seen what it was saying. But yeah, that I would say it's super important to make sure that you can customize it and easily update it. You don't need another AI tool to be a whole nother thing to update. Should be easy.
Yeah, and it should feel very similar to what we all experience today when we're using and interacting with something like ChatGPT, right? Like, or with Claude, being able to just type in, hey, can you change the tone to be a little bit more this way? Or I want you to be a bit more concise and fun and playful. Like it needs to be similar to how we're already engaging with AI tools in our regular lives because it makes it that much easier for the practice to like click because they're not, I would say practice owners, they come from a healthcare background. They're maybe not tech geeks. And so that was important to us when we were building AIs. It's got to feel like the simple AI that they're already engaging with at a very light level. And I will have a vulnerable moment and say, when Podium first built Avery, we had it set up where you had to talk to your customer success manager to change anything. So I can validate what Audrey and Ben are saying. That was a nightmare. That is not realistic because you will find that it's a very fast-growing industry. Obviously, you're changing things often. You're bringing on new treatments. You're running different events. You're changing and playing around with pricing. If you have to rely on someone else to make edits for you on your AI, it is not going to work. So yes, asking if it's self-serve adjustments and self-healing. And I love what Ben brought up, having a team available for the more like complex, more in the weeds stuff to really bounce ideas off of and get guidance on how to adjust from there.
All right, Audrey, getting back to you, let's turn everything we've discussed into an implementation decision. So, for a practice ready to build a 30-day implementation plan, what is the single most important decision to make before any tool is turned on?
What is the KPI you're tracking? The reason you're bringing on this, and when will you measure that KPI? And what would be acceptable for you. You wouldn't bring on a new employee and not measure how well they're doing. You shouldn't bring on a new tool and not pick out a KPI or KPIs that you're going to measure.
All right. Shannon, is there anything you would like to add from the staff and patient-facing side? What would you want included in that first month?
I mean, Audrey nailed it. It's a KPI. It's lead conversion. What do you know what your lead conversion was before? Do you know what your speed to lead is? And then after implementing your AI employee, how fast is your average time to respond now? And what has that done for your conversion rate? And bookings. That's really what it is. And you can really get a sense on if your staff's bought in with how often they're allowing the AI employee to manage those conversations. If you're noticing that it's getting turned off often and you're having to tell them why, turn it back on, then you don't have staff's buy-in and you really need to dig into like what's the concern there and how do you go back and train. If your AI employee is not performing the way you want, it's generally a training issue. And we would be remiss if we didn't say that there is some training. You have to do upfront training, but I promise you it is worth every penny and every bit of time that you put into it because it's only as good as you train it, just like a real employee.
All right, Shannon, we'll stay with you for a bit. What staff behavior observable in the first week after launch tells you the AI integration is working rather than being quietly bypassed?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I just said. It's are they trusting the AI employee and allowing them to do what they were hired to do, which is from our perspective, I'm going to make a big statement. I believe scheduling, we at Podium believe scheduling should not be touched by a human. AI can do it better. AI can do it faster. Scheduling is one of the biggest time sucks from a team. And so if you think about like all the back and forth of that doesn't work for me, what about this person? No, that person's not available, but this person is at this time. Like it's such a time suck. But AI, if they have access to the scheduler, can handle that so much faster. So I would say just back to what I said, are they allowing the AI employee to manage the task side of the practice and leaving the human in-person relationships to the front desk and the phone conversations? I know that there are some voice AI solutions out there. I will tell you, we have tried to build one and we will not give up on building one, but it is damn hard, I will tell you right now. So if you
This,
can find one that's good, more power to you, but that is an area that you should allow your, front desk team for now to handle those conversations.
I'll second that. We just launched our AI voice product and it is exceptional, but it has been a grind.
So hard, right, Ben?
Yeah, yeah, they're
It's
very.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, and now I want to bring your specific situations into the conversation. So we're opening the floor for audience Q&A. You can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question live or type a question into the Q&A. And when you submit it, give us your role and the specific problem you're dealing with, because I think that context will help me also direct it to the right panelist and help them give you a more useful answer. Anonymous questions are absolutely fine as well. So in our Q&A chat, we've got from Diane Hopkins, have you seen many aesthetic practices that actually have patient experience strategies, including person-to-person and technology-to-person tactics in place that includes adequately preparing staff to tend to lead well and to hiring staff with the talent for human connections? Maybe Ben, we could start with you.
I was going to say that sounds like an Audrey question, but I'll happily take a stab at it. Um, I have operated in healthcare for many years. Aesthetics is only about the past few years for me. I have seen, I think, a lot of philosophical approaches to patient experience across the board so far. Documented approaches, maybe not as common, which I've also seen that across virtually every other industry that I've operated in. So that's my perspective. I think getting more defined, going back to the concept of RACI, who's owning what, what are the intentional kind of experiences that you're trying to drive for patients, and then what are the wow moments, what are the opportunities where you can shine that are outside maybe the normal operational workflows that can really set you aside and go from being a trusted you know physician to someone that they're actually going to be remarking about to their friends, saying they went the extra mile. So looking for those little opportunities and training your staff on how to do that, very challenging, especially with the amount of turnover that we have in front office staff. It's not lost on me, but I think those are some of the areas that I would say in my experience. But Audrey, I'm sure you have a much more informed perspective on it.
Thanks, Ben. I totally agree with you. I think now we're implementing a lot more SOPs and standards and systems as we're bringing AI into practices. And I would argue that hopefully we're always hiring for someone that's warm, has a great human connection. But I've only seen AI amplify that. Imagine walking into practice, no phones ringing. You have someone that can get up, greet you, walk around, engage with you, and not having to be on the phone, texting back, calling leads back to back, and being able to amplify what they already have. I would also argue that AI is helping with retention. This is helping, hey, let's focus on you in the spot, giving that 5-star luxury. We can coach slowly to when we need to have the human interactions over the phone. But let's start with this and really owning the spa and that experience, as well as the providers, and not having to coach, because it is really hard to coach how to talk to someone over the phone. Again, they're the most underpaid people in our industry, from plastic surgery, wellness, health, and we're relying on them to be five-star marketers and salespeople and convert them over the phone, and it's hard. So letting them focus on things that are should be automated, like scheduling, a lot of human mistakes. That's going to increase the retention. They feel more trained. They can focus on what they like is human interaction, talking to people, and having those little extra nuances that you wouldn't have in another practice that's not using AI.
I want to add something to like the effectiveness of the phone conversation because that's obviously a very critical interaction that's happening and a way that you can leverage AI to coach and train your team. So with Podium's phone system, we actually built in where you can customize and say, this is in my perfect world as an owner, this is what the phone conversation would entail. These are things that I want them to do. I want them to announce their name. I want them to collect this information. We have an event coming up in 2 weeks. I would like them to talk about the event. I don't want them to talk about pricing. I want them to mention, like, there's so many things and every practice is different. So being able to customize on the back end and then have every phone conversation recorded and scored so that the owner can have insight into how effective is my front desk being and how cool to be able to also be able to highlight this is an incredible call. This is an A+ call. Great job. And then to be able to coach them on calls that maybe their score is a little bit lower. But I think it all starts with, are you setting the right expectation and asking them to do the right things? And then how can you use AI to hold them accountable?
Mm.
I-
All
I'll,
right.
I'll add one last thing that
Yeah.
really that struck me with Audrey's first comment. It is so much easier to hire for culture and train for skill than it is to do the opposite. So if you think about choosing the right AI solution that can offload a huge amount of the volume-based skills, that allows you to narrow your focus of these are the skills that I have to hire for and train for that are hyper important, high impact. I don't have to worry about all these other ones. And it's just you really cannot train culture. You're getting into people's identities and philosophical approaches, and it's just, but you can train skills all day. So I think that's a really important delineation that she touched on, but I wanted to expand on.
All right, we'll go through one more question before we end our Q&A session. We have some registrant questions as well from Tracy Thompson. She's preparing for a relocation, new build, and full rebrand for a plastic surgeon and med spa. So since they're essentially getting the opportunity to start fresh, what systems would you prioritize from day one to create a more efficient operation while still delivering that warm, welcoming luxury experience? Um, who would like to go first on that one?
I can go first. So especially because we're talking about, AI agents, if
Mhm.
you are opening your practice, you're probably going to try to fill your funnel and create that pre-opening. So you have a lot of people coming in. You may not be there during the spa. Obviously, you want to get appointments booked before you even open. So an AI agent is going to be able to convert those as well and put them in your schedule and reduce scheduling errors. So I think that's super important, especially opening a second location. And then it also assisting with training, like rating the calls and making sure, hey, this is a great call and great interaction. And making sure that everything can be automated, like booking appointments, talking to leads. When you're really trying to open, you want to open with memberships and appointments on the books. Everyone does. So AI agents can do that all night, 24/7, for you before opening. So either of these would be a great option when you're rebranding and moving to a new location, as well as making sure it's customized. They can both customize it. So do you say investment? How do we talk about pricing on the phone? What do we say at a greeting? What do we say in a text? As well, too, it's a great time to really customize your patient experience before they even come in.
And
And
anyone else?
congratulations.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyone else who would like to add anything?
I feel
No?
like I'm biased, and I just want to say start out with the right tech that has everything in one place and just buy Podium. So there's my
Oh
answer.
man.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Audrey, Ben, and Shannon for that. Now, before we wrap up, I want to put this back on the screen for just a moment and then get one final takeaway from each of our panelists. So, if you haven't already had a chance to scan the QR code yet, Echo Marketing is offering every practice owner joining us tonight a complimentary marketing strategy session valued at just $900. You'll receive a personalized, comprehensive growth plan, a Google AI overview audit, and a local competitor audit as well. So the QR code is right here on screen, so feel free to scan it. Audrey, Ben, and Shannon, I want to close our discussion with something very simple. So for the aesthetic practice owner listening tonight who wants to start using AI or perhaps is already using it, what is the one thing you would want them to remember about automating operations without losing the personal touch? Audrey, let's start with you.
Perfect. There always needs to be a human in the loop. Always approve, never send or ship without human approval.
Thank you, Audrey. Shannon, what's the one thing you would want practice owner to walk away remembering?
Honestly, I would say I'm just for the people that are open-minded to it right now, like that's step one. I think that's amazing. There's a lot of folks that aren't even to that headspace yet and are completely like against even thinking about incorporating AI. So I would say like kudos to all of you for being here and wanting to learn and being open to it. And for me, it's just do your homework, do your research, and find the right AI partner that's innovating and growing quickly, and because the technology is going very, very fast.
Yep.
And if there's not funding and resources to keep enhancing, to keep up with everything that's happening with AI, they're gonna fall behind. So just do your homework, do your shopping, do your due diligence, and it's just an exciting time. I hope everyone's excited about it. It's everyone who got into this industry did not get into this to manage software and technology. I can guarantee that. They got into it for artistry and patient outcomes and relationships, and AI is going to save the day. Honestly, in my opinion, it's going to take the stuff that practice owners don't love doing anyway and make it your life easier so you can focus on why you got into the industry in the first place. So it's exciting time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon. Ben, you get the final word tonight. What's your biggest
Appreciate
takeaway
that.
for practice?
Appreciate that. I'll just say buy AI Med Consultant. I think that the real thing is I agree with Shannon. I mean, AI is a tool. It, from my perspective, is designed to enhance what people are doing and to augment and improve that. Those who start adopting these tools earlier and get the repetitions in, learn how to use it, learn how to fit it into their workflows, into their businesses, they're going to win, and they're going to win at a faster rate. They are going to capture more market share more quickly, and it's going to be harder to get past their moat once they do that. So I would say I understand, step carefully. Don't just rip and replace everything you're doing now, fire all your people and hire an AI agent. That's probably not optimal, but get in and try things. And don't be the one that gets swept by the wave, be the one that rides the wave. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that's a perfect place to bring our discussion to a close. AI should make the practice more responsive and more efficient, but the goal is to still create a better experience for the human being on the outside of that conversation. So, Audrey, Ben, and Shannon, thank you so much for your time and for sharing such practical insights with us tonight. And to everyone who joined us, thank you for spending this hour with Business of Aesthetics and for all of your questions and your participation as well. So as you exit the panel, please take a moment to complete our short feedback survey. It really does help us shape future sessions around what is most useful to you. And if you weren't able to scan the QR code before we changed slides, the Echo Marketing strategy session link will also be available in the chat. So yeah, I'm Angie. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Business of Statics expert panel. Have a wonderful evening.